We're delighted to welcome you to our meeting place or our platform right at the junction between Hamngatan and Regeringsgatan. And that's where we want to be, right in the middle of the hustle and bustle of the city which we love. For those of you who are less familiar with us, we're a business organization. We were founded in 1902 by business and for business. And today we work on making Stockholm the greatest capital region in Europe. And we always try to fuel positive change in whatever we do. And we do that at the intersection between business, politics, academia, and society at large. We believe in the force of doing what we do right now, which is come together. And that's also why we launched Capital of Tech. As you may hear from my accent, I've lived abroad for a while. I haven't lived in Sweden for, 19 years before moving here 8 months ago. But I've always been very closely connected to tech, whether it's VC or private equity, or in my most recent role at the Swedish Chamber of Commerce for the UK. And it was always with such an immense sense of pride in what Stockholm and Sweden has achieved when it comes to innovation and tech. More unicorns per capita than other cities and some of the largest brands to our roster like Spotify and Klarna. However, saying that, we must never rest on our laurels. We never do that here at the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce. We should celebrate our success and learn from it, but we mustn't continue developing. So when I moved over here 8 months ago, I did that with a sense of, we're amazing at what we do. But at the same time, when I spoke to the tech community, everyone felt a bit, there's a recession. We don't know what's actually happening. Is it because the ecosystem here is taking a pause, or is it because we're actually in a position of greater competition? And rest assured of one thing, other cities, countries, and ecosystems will challenge for innovation. And competition is fierce, whether it's for talent, for investment, or ideas. So let's leave no stone unturned, as a familiar saying goes, when it comes to making sure that we do our very best to give Stockholm and its tech ecosystem what it needs to continue striving. And at the Stockholm Chamber of Commerce, we don't do this as a trade body representing tech. We don't represent tech. We represent the wider business community, the city. And we say that tech is fundamental for innovation and growth in Stockholm. And innovation and growth is fundamental to the very success of the city. Alas, it is a concern for all of us. Stockholm as a tech capital will be our main discussion point when we host our next event within this series. This is our third event on the 9th of February, when we also launch a report on the state and future of Stockholm as a tech capital. So I hope you can all join us then. Today's focus, however, is on AI, and you're all very familiar with it. AI is certainly one of those game changers, I'd say. We know it will be one of those transformative game changers and change makers, no longer a buzzword, but actually a critical factor in the success of any business. And I think it's just getting more and more intense every day when you read about what AI can and cannot do. We see other tech centers in the world and states focusing on its potential. It's time that we do the same. There are risks, definitely, but I think it's the potential that we need to look at moving forward. Europe needs to accelerate, and let's bear this in mind as we head into a European election year in 2024 as well. Now, it's amazing to see so many of you here, and it's been very challenging for us because we've had to turn down some 150 people who wanted to come today. But as you can see, we can't really fit any more people here. So consider yourself lucky and very specifically selected and accepted to this event. This means that we expect you to participate actively and stay on and take part in the conversation. Lastly, a huge thanks to our partners, who also believe in Stockholm as a capital of tech. Thanks to Danske Bank, EY, and Osborne Clark. You'll be hearing from some of them today as well for supporting our efforts. Now, let me welcome up my colleague and friend Sophie Hedestad, also a tech entrepreneur. Sophie will be moderating today's session, and I leave this in your very capable hands, Sophie, and wish you all a fantastic afternoon, and I'll see you on the other end with drinks and neon lights. So enjoy the conversations.
Yes. Thank you, Peter, and very welcome, everyone. My name is Sophie Hedestad, and I work here at Stockholm Handelskammer at the tech events and tech initiatives that we do here. And I also run a SaaS business called Nox, where I'm the startup founder. So super excited to talk about artificial intelligence today and what we can do in this area going forward. So I was going to ask you a question to get some energy up in the room here. Who works with AI on a daily basis? Up with your hands. Not everyone, but some hands I see. I'm a bit blinded by the lights, but quite a few of you work with AI on a daily basis. And we have a packed afternoon. We have some canapés and drinks afterwards, so I hope you can stay and mingle a little bit with all of us in here. But we will actually start with the first panel today. So I know we have 4 people joining me here on stage. We have Evelina Antila, managing partner from Well Street. I have Anna Fellander, founder and president at Ank.ai. Per Fredriksson, solution engineering at Salesforce, and Henrik Bergström, managing partner at Osborne and Clark. So I think we can welcome the first panel on stage. Hello. Yes, this looks fun. You should grab one of these assets each, because we will come back to that later on. But maybe the first question to you is, how do you work with AI today? Just a short introduction. Your name, title, company, and how you work with AI.
Per Fredriksson, and as you may have heard, I've been living in Sweden forever. Never worked abroad. I just sound like this anyway. I lead the solution engineering team for Salesforce in Sweden. So 2 things, right? One is my team talk to customers about AI and AI functionality on a daily basis. The second one is that it is every Wednesday we have a forecast call, and we have AI models that predicts where we're going to land in the quarter, which provides input where we prioritize our business.
Great, and you can hand over to Henrik.
Henrik Bergström, managing partner Osborne Clark in Sweden. I'll be telling you a little bit more about our implementation of AI later on. But AI to us is something that we embrace rather than stay away from. So AI is currently just being something that we are on and updated more or less on a weekly basis on a global level.
I'm Evelina. Thanks for having me here. So I'm a managing partner of a VC firm called Well Street. We invest in early stage tech startups, and of course AI startups is part of that. And in addition to that, we also try to make sure that our portfolio companies that we've already invested in start to use AI. And I have a background in AI myself. Before joining Well Street, I was part of building up Peltarian, which was one of the Nordic AI pioneers. I would say you will meet one of the really sort of OG AI brains here later tonight. And before that, I was a lawyer. So yeah, really interested in sort of the legal and ethical aspects of AI.
So I'm Anna Fellander. I founded Ank.ai in 2018. So we help organizations with implementing responsible AI. We have a research-based ethical framework that we screen over 200 use cases for ethical and legal risks. So we help organizations to avoid the costly, ungoverned ethical risks and legal breaches. And right, so the AI Act is around the corner, and everyone is talking about control and oversights of risk. So here we are.
Yes, and this panel we will start to talk about tactics, what you can do here and now to actually increase your business growth. I think most companies are quite excited about the opportunities. So my first question is to you, Evelina. What are the key AI trends currently when it comes to tactics that businesses should be aware of?
Well, I first think it's important to sort of embrace the technology, as you mentioned, and to sort of be curious about it and understand what you can do with it. But obviously, I mean, I think what we need in the future is sort of more collaboration with the big corps and AI startups. I think it's problematic to say there's an AI race, although it is an AI race, because it shouldn't be a competition. It's a big technological shift, and we all need to be part of that. But I think the sort of winners could potentially be the big corps, because they have the resources, they have the processes, and the legacy processes. And if we sort of combine that with the innovation that typically is coming from AI startups, I think that could be a good tactic. So being curious is the sort of main start.
Being curious. Per, how do you use AI in your platform? You work at Salesforce.
So basically, we implemented various levels of machine learning and AI capabilities in everything we do. So marketing, sales, service, field service. We're getting into generative AI with coding and so on. So it is, I think we have about 50 or 60 more traditional use cases in terms of predictive analytics, predictive models and things like that. But we've launched 12 generative AI capabilities just the last month, and we have about 25 more coming in the pipe. So it's basically all over the place, regardless of what you do with Salesforce. I think what we try to do very hard is consumable functions. So what is the specific business problem we're trying to solve for a specific persona? Saving time for a customer service rep, prioritizing leads for a marketing person, and so on. So that's really where we're striving for.
All right. And we will gonna talk more about this, Per, but I'll move on to Anna. What is the best AI success story you ever heard? A company that implemented AI in an amazing way to achieve growth.
Well, they're here in Stockholm. It's Sana Labs, for example. We have a smaller company called No Ordinary Scent, tailors perfume with AI. We have Simply that has AI assistant. I mean, all of these solutions that you can apply on low-risk use cases. It's about to embrace this, but when you come higher up the risk ladder, then you need the ethical framework, and you need a human in the loop in every stage of the AI development, doing a impact risk assessment, and it's all about the cross-functional orchestration in a large. So we work with many large organizations, just having the compliance team and the tech team and the business team in the same room, and then doing a reporting that non-tech decision makers can actually grasp. Because with this development, we realized early on that in large organizations with the tech silo, there are critical business decisions that are taken that are not aligned with the regulation nor the company's ethical values. So we work with organizations that are large, that want to create sustainable business models. So if you go higher up the ladder, like pharmaceutical companies, then you need this ethical framework in order to avoid the costly reputational risk, but also legal breaches.
Can I just add to that? Because I think it's interesting what you mentioned about the companies, Sana Labs, etc. And I think it's easy to get caught up in this AI hype, but I think you can't really forget the fundamentals of building a successful companies, which starts with the problem, and to sort of make sure that you're actually solving a problem for someone. So just the technology itself could be like a shiny toy, but that's not at least what we as an investor look for. And secondly, I think it's so interesting times that we live in. I mean, I'm sure you've all heard about what happened in the last few days in Silicon Valley. And I mean, the CEO of OpenAI is out, but what I think is the real story here is the need for regulation, because we're living in a soap opera, which is live. It's just like bring out the popcorn. But what I think is interesting is that we now see, the technology is not really proven yet, which I think will affect the valuations. With this sort of shaky governance in place, and now, OpenAI is specific like animal, that's also gonna sort of affect valuation. And I think thirdly, I mean, we have an upcoming regulation here in the EU, and GDPR, it was an EU regulation, or is an EU regulation, but it affects the entire world, because I mean Europe is a big part of the world. So I think that sort of like uncertainness around regulation will also affect the valuations of companies right now. But I think this sort of whole debacle that's sort of happening right now really sheds a light on the need for regulation.
All right, and with the regulation, I was thinking we can move over to Henrik, and we will talk about EU regulation short, but maybe you can just give us some insights how you work at Osborne & Clarke. I mean, when it comes to AI and the legal industry, how would you say that like the legal industry work with AI currently?
So obviously our industry is going to be impacted, or is already impacted, by this technical revolution, or whatever you want to call it. As any other industry, and at Osborne & Clarke we're just now trying to embrace that fact. And as you know, our firm has a deep connection with the tech industry, going back some 20 plus years since we established in Silicon Valley. We just decided to lead rather than follow now. So we've invested heavily in an AI management board that basically has a mandate to give us direction, both internally, but also, you know, client-facing, and trying to find out, you know, how do we solve certain specific client problems, but also how do we manage it internally, and what kind of sort of general purposes do we need to apply internally. And in sort of, I think it's more or less in a week or so, we will deploy our own contained OC GPT AI that we will you know start working with internally, and it's based on the latest technology with 4.0 license. So we'll just see how this evolves and try to dip our toes in it, and it's going to benefit us as much as our clients, basically.
Anna, you're nodding here. You want to jump in?
Yes,
what do you have to say?
I mean, this technology, Gen AI, is so different with towards specific AI. So the productivity growth are forecasted to have an impact on global GDP with 7%. And the labor productivity comes both from cost reductions, from time reductions. And that would be 55% time reduction in coding, 44% time reduction in creative writing, etc., etc. But the most amazing thing, we've been waiting to see the productivity measures in the official statistics, but we haven't. So this is going to come, and you know productivity leads to job growth. And also there will be a productivity with, that's why I wanted to comment, because lawyers, architect, administration, they will be, 1/4 of the labor market will be replaced by Gen AI, and 2/3 will be augmented and have better labor productivity from Gen AI. And the lawyers, for example, you need to, as you do, climb higher the value chain to be competitive. So there's a lot of junior competence that can increase their skill sets, but to a certain degree. So it's more analytic, creative thinking, critical thinking, and intuition that will be valued more highly at the workforce. And I think that's so interesting. It's the supply shock of the left brain, the left side of the brain.
And you are very excited. You are not...
Yes, I'm super excited. This technology will... And I'm so excited about how to embrace this in low-risk areas. For example, Walmart, they have a generative AI chatbot. You come in and you say, well, I want to have a party at Halloween. And there you go. Because you create, the Gen AI creates a lot of creativity examples of how you can collect your everything from food to dressing in Walmart. But you have to be aware of there will be discrimination in these contents. So if you say you want to dress up to Halloween, that's a low risk, because you can, I mean, there will be dress codes that maybe wants to highlight more the Western white male-dominated community, but that's a low risk. If it's an app that you use in healthcare, you know the example that the chatbot said recommended to commit suicide, etc. But you need to embrace it where it's low risk.
But I sort of disagree, also agree on that part. But I think, I mean, the real potential that I also see is the high risk sort of applications. And that's why I think it's important to have regulation and sort of have policy around how to develop it and how to use it. Because there are so many challenges that we have in front of us. And I think that technology will be a really good tool to sort of solve those challenges. And I mean, going back to what I mentioned about OpenAI and what's happening right now, and why I think it's so important for us to sort of see where this is going is because, I mean, right now, a few like companies, you can count them on your hand, is in control of the development of AI. And that is really worrying from like a democratic sort of point of view. And I think, I mean, what we're also seeing right now, it's a bit of speculations, but I mean, the reporting says that, I mean, it's basically two sides. So the idealism and then the profit. And as it looks now, that's a conflict between them, but it shouldn't be a conflict. I think you can sort of have like two thoughts in your mind and innovate, which is why I'm a tech optimist, but still really like pro-regulation.
And maybe, Henrik, you can take us through like a short course of the regulation, because we talk about low risk, mid risk, high risk. What is this?
I mean, to us, it's all about sort of input and output. So there's different risks depending on, you know, on what side you're at. Input meaning, you know, the data training and the user input into the model that you use. You know, having considerations like IP risks, general liability, confidentiality for that, for one's sake, and you know, as mentioned, GDPR, data privacy issues, etc., etc. And then on the other side, you know, whatever is generated creates a risk, the output itself, you know, how you deploy it, in what context. And that's when you need to consider so many different regulations depending on context. And the AI Act will only be sort of one, probably like an umbrella type of regulation, but it will still just be, you know, specific context that will sort of guide you in terms of regulation, but the risk will still be, you know, the same. There is an output and there's an input, and you need to consider them both.
Yeah, Anna,
it's so interesting because going back, we visited Salesforce in 2018, and you already had a responsible AI compliance officer, and then there was no talk about regulation. And even when in 2021, when Margrethe Vestager introduced this regulation, I mean, Svenskt Näringsliv, they were in Brussels saying this will hamper innovation and growth. No, 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 no. And now, with Sam Altman being, that's what happens, Sam Altman being fired out of AI, and there's no, like, their vision is to have generalized AI for humanity. So we don't know actually what was the cause, but it's true, it's really polarized. And then when the EU Act also is around the corner, now the Biden administration and the UK government also said, okay, we need to regulate this. So it's a shift from going back a couple of years. And I agree with you, the AI for curing diseases and to do the high risk, even more so important to regulate and then to see it as a competitive edge. Because if you get into pitfalls, you can't go back and rebuild trust. And also when the compliance team, like in the cases where they come in for product validation, they go like really late in the AI life cycle for deployment, and they say no because they haven't done the risk assessment in the early phase of design or data collection. So it's important to early on have the compliance team and the business team that knows the context where the solution is used to really ensure that you don't have to withdraw this really costly AI solution, or you get a no for compliance because there's no really transparency and explainability.
And I mean, we've been here before. Sorry. Do you want to go?
I was going to ask Per, like the Salesforce, you have, I mean, thousands of employees. How difficult is it for you to follow the regulation and keep track on it?
Oh, it's an absolute pain in the ass.
Thank you
But
for
we
the
have to do
honesty.
I mean, I just have to give a shout out to Kathy Baxter, who leads our ethical board, and we now have 3 of them, including one that's actually looking at how are we using it internally for employees. But I would completely agree. We need regulation, and we need a lot of it fast. I think that's the biggest challenge to our society right now, is that it's always a challenge when technology moves this fast, and we are cavemen driving Teslas. And our society, a lot of our societal and the interactions we have is still based on sort of cavemen. And how do you change that? And the way we work and legislation takes a lot of time to get right. So that's it. It's going to be a really interesting space for sure. A lot of work for you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, as it looks now, the status in the sort of regulation process is that we will most likely have a regulation in 2 years' time. And imagine what will happen during that time. So that's really sort of a big challenge. But what I was going to mention is that we've been here before. I mean, the same with big data. And when the sort of tech leaders 10 years ago started to build these social media platforms, of course, they didn't have the intention to sort of harm teenage girls and sort of like negatively impact elections. But here we are. And I mean, people are now talking about this technology shift being bigger than the internet. So imagine the risks that will come with that. But it looks like we sort of agree on the pro-regulation.
But I also think that Gen AI has exposed us to more risk because they get more subtle. So it's a lot of trust in us just letting a private actor having us as experience. So we have to know the limits of Gen AI. We have to know the limits in that we cannot see whether the algorithm is 100% sure of a content or not so sure, but tilting over to sure. So it's about the algorithm can never say I don't know, or I'm a bit unsure about this, but tilting over to that we cannot do, and we cannot even that the regulations will say so. You can't. Sam Altman said, "Oh, now we can really validate and put a watermark on what is generated by AI," but then we know that he couldn't. So he withdraw that statement. So there's a lot of development that has to be focused on to implement this that will be sustainable for us, for humans, so we can trust it.
And I was thinking now that we can actually grab our little sticks here. So the green one says yes, it means true. And the red one means false. So I think you can have that in your mind. So are you ready?
Yes.
I want you to act instantly on your gut feeling now. So true or false, AI tactics primarily involve replacing human workers. Oh, have you talked before?
Yes.
Absolutely.
You don't want to have a conflict here on stage.
We're Swedish, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anyone want to give a reflection on this?
I can.
Yep.
I think it's always fascinating with these large tech shifts. You can go back quite a while, right? And we always get it wrong. We think that something's going to replace us, or the steam train. You're going to die if you travel faster than a horse. No, we didn't. The telephone. People are not going to meet up to actually procreate, so the human society is going to die out. That's actually a researcher at Oxford that said that. And the list goes on, right? So, right? All these technology innovations that, this is going to replace everything. Well, some jobs, to your point, will probably get replaced or be done so much more efficiently that you're going to see. I mean, I would argue, if you are a marketing copywriter in California right now and you're mediocre, you're going to have a tough time. But you're going to find new jobs. You're going to find new categories of jobs. And prompt engineering, I was starting to see, and you may have as well, starting to see job placement ads that has the word prompt engineering in them, which is wild. It didn't exist a year ago. So,
all right, we have it next year. I mean,
let's move on to the next true or false. AI requires massive budgets. True or false? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Consensus.
I think that is sort of also from an investor's perspective, because now, I mean, the cost of intelligence is going to zero, and the technology is available for everyone, and that also means that it's a great opportunity to build an AI company. But I think you should be more aware of then, like the moats, vallgravar, like how do you differentiate yourself, and my sort of like. Sort of opinion there is that proprietary data will be key in the future, if not already.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
Because as it is now, OpenAI has the Chat GPT just crawling every web page and can double click on content. So So the trend now is kind of to lock it, and that's interesting that you really want to keep it to yourself, and that's a reaction to it. But the EU law will say that you have to explain and present what the algorithm, if the algorithm trained on others' IP.
And that's really interesting also
That's
from
the suggestion.
yeah, but I mean, it's interesting also from sort of valuation and investors' perspective, because right now, I mean, all the big language models are trained on data that has been scraped on the web. I mean, right or wrong, probably wrong. And if we now have sort of clear rules when it comes to how to use data, for example, I mean, if we're going from a Napster era to a Spotify era, where you will actually need to pay to a larger extent for the data, then this will fuck up the business models of the companies, which will sort of affect valuation long term.
All right. So we have approached the end here for the first panel. We needed to go a bit shorter here. I had more true or false, but you have very insightful discussions here on stage. So please give this first panel a big applaud.
Thank you.
All right, we will move in to the first single speaker here on, or the standalone, the only speaker here on stage where we don't have a panel, which is Charlotta Kvarnström. She is partner from EY. And now we've been talking about, I mean, a lot of regulations when it comes to AI, but also opportunities. Charlotta will talk about maximizing the opportunities with AI, but also a little bit about minimizing risks. So we will continue this path. So a big hand for Charlotta.
Charlotta Kvarnström is my name. I am the market segment leader for technology, media and telecommunications for EY Nordics. Super excited to hear this previous panel, lots of touch points. I will touch upon a few different aspects of AI. There's, of course, many things we want to delve down into, but I will touch upon the potential. I will talk a little bit about the different types of risks and challenges that we see, and our view on how we proactively and holistically can manage these risks. I will speak about how we operationalize trusted AI, and deep dive a little bit around the skills, how to upskill, attract and retain. And finally, try to sort of sew the pieces of the puzzle together to see how we build a foundation. So the potential, I think, I believe in this room we agree there's a huge potential. But what is happening right now? What can we see in terms of the, I would say, mostly experimentation going on? Well, first of all, Microsoft has concluded there's a 55% time savings when it comes to coding, programming. MIT has concluded 44% time savings when it comes to professional writing. McKinsey has looked at both customer operations and concluded a 39% productivity gain and a 31% productivity gain when it comes to software engineering productivity. We, EY, have done a large global study where we have surveyed global CEOs. And of these CEOs surveyed, 43% say that they are currently conducting and investing in AI initiatives. and 45% say that they will in the next 12 months. So a huge majority are investing. 75% of senior executives also believe that there is a productivity gain as a result of AI. So in conclusion, the CEOs and the world are seeing the potential. So what are some of the challenges then? Well, there's different categories of challenges. I think the panel touched on a few of them, and I will mention a couple here as well. So of the CEOs that we discussed with, 68% says that the uncertainty is preventing them from acting quickly, both with reference to the lack of regulatory and legislation, but also the fast-moving technology itself. 91% of the ongoing generative AI initiatives is around operations efficiency, and only 8% is leveraging OpenAI for innovation. 87% of these CEOs are currently hiring AI talent. I think we will hear more from this in the next panel. It's scarce resources, and 87% are currently looking. 65% believe that the ethical and legal risks must be addressed. And furthermore, 77% believe that there needs to be a proactive governance around AI, but only 35% has an enterprise-wide governance in place. If we look at the regulatory legislation, we heard already about this. What we're waiting for is the EU AI Act. We're looking for the Biden order, and we have the G7 leaders' statement. Legislation and regulatory are by nature slow, and in combination with the fastest moving emerging tech, the gap is wide. Also, legislation will not help us with all aspects of the things we need to address when it comes to the risks. So we need a framework to govern our corporate initiatives in AI, to address all of the different aspects that we will fall into traps if we don't. And it was already addressed, the turmoil around Chat GPT, with Altman and Brockman leaving, and the head of R&D being the one that pulling the trigger. So it's impossible not to mention that. But just to mention a couple of other type of issues and challenges that we will see more of. One being the ethical aspect, where a poll was placed alongside the story of a woman's death, of course with a negative impact from an ethical point of view and on the brand. The second is whether OpenAI has engaged in unfair and deceptive practices with reputational harm to customers. Again, regulatory legislation is not sufficient. And what are going to govern AI's actions? Who is going to make those judgments? That's another category. The third is intellectual property, as an example. In this case, one of the AI image generation systems potentially using 12 million images without the proper consent. Just a couple of categories of issues. We will see more. So, I believe, there's a few steps that we need to take in order for us to optimize the value and minimize the risks of OpenAI. The first step is to establish a consistent ethical framework. So what are the guardrails, what are the policies and principles that you will govern all your AI initiatives around? Set that framework as a first starting point. Second, you need to create cross-functional teams. You will need legal, you would need risk and compliance, you will need HR, you need obviously technology and data and analytics, and then you need to work with the domains where you're going to do the AI development, if it's customer operations, if it's product development. And we propose that this is set up as a control tower as opposed to your center of enablement, because this is where you set your strategy, this is where you do your alignment, and this needs to be anchored on C-level. Then we also heard on that, then you need to build an inventory of your AI systems. Might sound straightforward and obvious, but very few companies today are fully on top of the AI initiatives actually going on in the company. You need to build clear AI auditing principles. So when you generate code today with coders, programmers, you do QA in a certain way, but you need to do QA from a different perspective when the code is generated by OpenAI. So you need to train for those skills and make sure you have those processes in place. You need to integrate ethics into all of your AI development. Again, linking back to that ethical framework, what are some of the ethical principles that we always will adhere to and follow when you do AI development? Decide these things up front so that you don't fall into these pitfalls. And you need to build awareness and training, obviously to the people that are doing the development, but also broadly in the organization. And I'll come back to that in a minute. And then you need to monitor and continuously improve, because legislation will change and certainly the technology will evolve. And so do your practices and controls need to follow accordingly. And then what we propose is to do a maturity assessment and a gap analysis, making sure you understand the uncertainties and the organizational constraints and can take action towards closing those gaps in that continuous improvement process. 2/3 of companies agree that the skills gap is hampering them from creating optimal value with OpenAI. And remember, 87% of the CEOs are hiring for AI skills. We believe a way to sort of try to look at this from a strategic workforce development perspective is look at what skills do you need now, today? What skills do you need tomorrow? And what skills does the entire organization have to be trained on? Well, the skills you need now is to do the augmentation, develop your models and the machine learning and sort of the algorithm design, all that you need for that experimentation type of initiative. That is the majority of the initiatives going on today, 91%. Tomorrow, you will be hiring and training for skills and roles that doesn't even exist today. You will have to have your trusted AI officer. You have to have understanding of the auditing, compliance, and QA processes. Again, doing that from a different perspective with different glasses or a different lens compared to how you do QA of code today. You need to continuously work and tune your large language model because if you're going to use AI for core business, you need to train your AI models with that data. That is data that isn't part of the big large language models that we have based most of the solutions on today. Prompt engineering, machine manager, etc. But then you need to look at the wider organization because we are democratization. It's a democratization of AI and data. Everyone will be using this, whether or not you place the solution inside the walls of your company, or otherwise they will find the solutions outside. So in the similar way that you would do code of conduct training or ethics training, you will have to also train the wider organization in OpenAI. And you need to make sure you have the security, the compliance implementation done so that you know how to control and make sure that you don't leak data, violate intellectual property rights, etc. So, how do you get this now into a foundation and how do you optimize the value while at the same time managing and proactively managing the risks? The experimentation is important. 90% is operational improvements, incremental improvements, saving money. That is important and should be part of the portfolio. But what you also need to do to maximize the value and really create the big bucks opportunities is to take a step back and ask yourself what will really be disrupting my industry or my sector in the next couple of years. What are some of the problems that I can now solve for that I couldn't solve for without OpenAI? And what are some of the solutions or value I can create now, thinking outside of the box, that I can create now with OpenAI? Thinking about it in terms of reimagining future business models. So you have the majority of your initiatives in the portfolio will be, how do I make my functions more efficient versus these big bets? And you need a few of these strategic initiatives where you're actually going to create the maximum value, get the highest return on investment. That also typically comes with the largest risks. So this is where you then need to activate that governance, the ethical framework and all those steps that we talked about. And within those guardrails, you need to unleash your organization. You need to unleash the innovation power and really create these solutions that will help us, in a wider sense in society. And you need to mix your portfolio with these both of these types of initiatives. Finally, I want to highlight the importance of ecosystem partnerships. So most companies will not have all capabilities in-house, especially when it comes to these strategic bets. When we survey the digital transformation leaders, 2/3 say that they understand the value and will form these ecosystem partnerships within the next 12 months. When we survey a larger group, only 29% have in their strategic plans to form partnerships. So again, risk and reward is typically going hand in hand. But if you are going to create these big bets, and if you're going to maximize the value and the return on investment, you will get a larger piece of the pie if you work in strategic partnership ecosystems. So that's the last piece of the puzzle. Combine your portfolio with the operational improvement excellence type of initiatives, the big bets, have that proactive holistic governance in place and unleash the innovation power. That's how you maximize value, value creation, return on investment, while proactively managing the risks. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotta. If I ask you, what is your personal, how do you use AI personally?
We actually at EY have placed Chat GPT within the inside of our walls for obvious reasons, so we can more freely sort of use it. So I use it actually on a daily basis. I have debates because obviously we're also developing the large language model, and it's not super intelligent yet, to be honest, but it's getting there. We have 400,000 people training it on a daily basis. So I use it for many aspects. I'm trying to summarize information, obviously using for translation, those simple things. But I'm looking forward to the Copilot implementation.
Mm. All right. One big hand again to Charlotta, and have a seat. We will have the second panel coming up on stage, and maybe I can get some help to get these two tables up on the stage here again. And I think, the energy in the room was great when we started, but maybe we should get some, just stand up and breathe, and we will introduce the next panel. So just stand up and give them a big hand when they come up. Some music maybe as well, Helena. Yeah.
Touch it, bring it, pay it, watch it, turn it, leave it, stop, format it. Technologic.
Hey.
Technologic. Technologic.
You want us in order?
Sorry?
You want us in order?
You can stand like this. You don't need to reorder yourself. But I can read according to this order here. We have Alok Mehta. He's former lead US public policy at OpenAI. So I guess many people want to mingle with him afterwards. What's happening? We have heard that on stage, and he got the answers. No?
I tried to interrogate him, but I failed.
I mean, I think we've talked a lot about uncertainty in the AI industry around things like capabilities and discovery of use cases. I think this shows that there's a lot of uncertainty in the underlying industry itself, as you might expect in something that is so new, and so there's a lot of uncertainty in business models and governance models, and so as you think about using tools, you should probably think about your dependence on a single platform and building in risk management to make sure that you have options as you integrate AI into the workplace.
And then we have Anders Arpteg, and you're Director of Data Science at the Swedish Security Service, SÄPO. Yes. And we have Veronica Rörsgård, CEO from Lernia. And we also have Alexander Westerdahl, HR at Spotify. Yes. And we will focus this panel on the competence we have here in Stockholm and Sweden. And we also have Mark with us. Do we have Mark? Yeah. Hi, Mark.
Super excited to be able to join this panel discussion today.
And Mark is an AI avatar, so he's not a real person in flesh and blood. And I have some questions for Mark today also. So I will include him in the panel soon. But let's start. Veronica, you have done a great survey about AI and the Swedish population. What did it say, like the key findings?
Exactly. We conducted a survey about around 5,000 respondents, like a pulse of the labor market. And to share a few findings, a first one was that 1 in 10 are afraid of losing their job as a result of the development of AI. And you could also see that there tends to be a line between the more you know, or the higher the awareness about AI, the more afraid you are about the effects on your job. So that was quite interesting. When we conducted this survey in September, 1 in 5 said that they used AI in their jobs. And I'm sure with the pace that we are seeing right now that today the number would be higher. And we could also see that in the metropolitan areas such as Stockholm, the percentage was a bit higher. And finally, which I think is quite positive, is that around 30% of the respondents stated that they are aware of and open for that their jobs will be affected by AI, and they are open to train and develop according to that. So just a few findings.
Nice, and we will come back to some of the findings later in the panel as well. Alexander, Spotify, you are looking for talent, tech talent and AI talent. How does it look in Stockholm and Sweden?
Not so good at the moment. I think we're on place 12 in comparison to other countries across Europe. So we've focused our AI efforts and AI talent approaches to US mainly. And we've found that we need talent magnets, so we hire specific individuals that then attract talent to them. And those individuals tend to be in the US at the moment. And then we've started to create our talent AI hubs in US. And it's, of course, expensive to shift that strategy towards other regions. So we've kind of built ourselves into US at the moment, but we will diversify that going forward.
Okay, Alok, you heard US, and you're from US.
Yes.
You've been traveling a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. What attitudes towards AI would you say is out there in Sweden? You've been in India, US. Can you share?
Yes. So I'm traveling right now as part of an Eisenhower Fellowship and doing research on upskilling and reskilling initiatives in various countries. And I think the thing that's jumped out to me is I don't have the data available, but if there's a level of apprehension in Sweden around AI, there is, I think, significantly more apprehension about AI in the US for a variety of reasons. I think part of it is that AI companies talk about apocalyptic scenarios quite a lot, and that makes people fearful, but also there's a different kind of social relationship between employers and employees in the US that make people in the US much more afraid that they will be replaced entirely in their jobs. So one of the things I think that stands out is that there's a unique social contract here that reduces some of that apprehension, and that could be a strategic advantage in Sweden to leverage that and use people's willingness and openness about new technologies to bolster Sweden's both AI talent and its entrepreneurship in the AI space.
It's music to Alexander's ears.
The future is bright. But maybe not Sweden, maybe more Europe, comparatively speaking. But we'll deep dive in that later.
Okay.
And Anders, you're working at Säpo. How would you say the technical competence difference between private sector and like governmental organizations?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many times I've gotten that question. I've worked at Spotify before, so I know how it was recruiting there for AI talents, and Peltarion as well. So I've been in the private sector quite a long time, and now working in the government sector. The difference is actually not that big that you think. For one, I think if the management team properly understand what is necessary to do the proper investment in AI, you can do that in a government agency just as well as you can in private sector. Now, our agency is a bit different than most other agencies, and we do have a lot of security demands, and it's really hard to get hired at our place. We have a long hiring process. We also have a lot of offerings that we cannot make, like we can't really work from home because of security demands, and we also have developing software is tough because we have a lot of demands on how these security constraints should be applied. But I think we have one of the best reasons why you should join, and that's the reason I personally chose to go to the government agency, which is the mission. We truly have the mission to safeguard our society and Swedish democracy. And in times like this, when I started there was no war in Ukraine or Middle East, or we didn't have these kind of corona burnings and everything else happening. So, but that's just strengthening my confidence that this is really where we need to spend some time now. So I'm really proud of working where I am to do what best I can to simply help our society.
You also told me in the break, which I found super interesting, you can flip the arguments that some of the rest of us are using. So we offer working from home so people have flexibility. But you also offer people to disconnect when they leave the office because they can't bring their tools home.
I remember the Spotify days as well, and especially when I worked at Peltarion, we had the corona times then, and we were working from home and weren't even allowed to go to the office. And then if you work a lot, you do check your emails on evenings and weekends and whatnot. But I cannot even do that. When I leave the office, I can't even check my calendar. Nor my mail.
Wow.
That's actually a big relief. So it's people should promote this more.
Okay, so you need to talk more to Anders in the break about this. To get
you're
the
off at 5,
balance.
right? So we have to talk later.
Exactly, we need to be off at 5. That's true. No minute above 5. And Veronica, I know you shared some insights in the beginning here, but you said 1 out of 10 is scared that AI will replace their jobs. So 9 out of 10 is not scared.
Well, not according to the 5,000 respondents, and that was a wide group in the labor market, so a mix of jobs, yeah, correct.
And what would you say, should they be concerned? What is your private view on this?
Well, there have been, Anna was into this topic, and there's a lot of course, surveys and studies made on what will be the implication on the labor market. And I would say that nobody, of course, knows exactly the answer. But I do agree that most likely some jobs will disappear, while others might be new ones, that we saw some examples on the screen. But in general, I think all of us will certainly be affected by AI. Looking at a recent study by McKinsey, you can see that generative AI tends to probably affect more complex jobs. If you look at automation and classic AI, that was more like automating repetitive tasks, while generative AI will probably affect productivity more in complex tasks, which means that it would affect jobs requiring higher education. So that is quite interesting that probably those jobs will be more affected by AI. And
so lawyers will not be needed, like that is more complex job, and then like taxi drivers will still be needed.
Exactly. No, probably not that simple. Of course, a lot of time could be released from these jobs, from, as you all talked about, gathering information, finding nice way of presenting. And then, of course, the question is, what do you do with that time? Do you reduce the number of employees, or do you add more value, adding services that can be interesting for your clients? But what is included in your daily job will certainly be affected.
Interesting. And Alexander, you work at the global company Spotify. And when you've been out and about traveling, seeing other places, how would you say that Stockholm is compared to other regions like San Francisco, Boston, Amsterdam, Berlin, that is also like considered as tech hubs?
From a talent perspective, I think the largest talent pools are like San Francisco and New York. You have about 75,000 in San Francisco, 50,000 in New York. And then if you transfer that into Europe, the biggest talent, like the highest talent density is in London. It's about 25,000 people. Then you have Paris, then you're down to 20,000, and then we have Stockholm, which is somewhere around maybe 6,000 to 7,000 individuals doing and knowing AI. And when I look at the common denominators on why a certain market has high pockets of talent versus markets that doesn't have high pockets of talents, there's two things. One is the competitive environment. Talent draws new talent. So when people ask us, aren't you afraid that Instagram establishes their office next door to yours in New York? I'm definitely not from a talent perspective. I think that's great. It means that we have access to larger talent pools and we can attract people to Spotify that subscribes to our values and what we believe in. So that's just a good thing. The second most important factor is academia. And if you want to be cutting edge in AI, you have to have research. And these individuals tend to want to have one leg in research and academia and one leg in the private sector, so they can combine income with academic merits. And I'm sorry if I'm insulting anyone here that's one of those individuals. I think it's great if you can combine the two. But we don't have that in Stockholm the same way as they do in these other markets that I'm talking about. And that's when I say maybe Sweden isn't the focus. I think first and foremost it's Europe. And if you compare talent density in Europe versus US, Europe is actually better. So if we can enhance collaboration across the different countries in Europe, we can achieve something really good and building that talent powerhouse across Europe. And if Europe is too big, then we should probably focus on the Nordics instead and see what we can do there to drive some of that academic development connected with attracting larger employers that are cutting edge in this space to the Nordics.
All right, and I guess you're a bit curious what Mark has to say here. I was thinking he can answer the same question. Mark, what do you say about this? How do Stockholm compare, and how can we learn from other regions?
Alexander provided an excellent response. Stockholm faces stiff competition for AI talent globally, with challenges including attracting international professionals and fostering a robust educational ecosystem. To become a leading AI hub, Stockholm can learn from established centers like San Francisco and Boston by investing in education and offering competitive compensation. Amsterdam and Berlin's success in fostering tech communities and providing attractive living conditions also offer valuable lessons. Proactive measures in these areas can enhance Stockholm's appeal and competitiveness in the dynamic field of artificial intelligence.
I feel I'm out of a job now. Mark is more straight to the point than I am.
Yeah, first we wanted to hear what you had to say about this.
Okay,
then
thank
we
you.
turned off.
And he did it in half the time. Much more precise.
No, but valuable insights from both of you. And as he said, you provided an excellent answer, so he gave you some cred as well.
Thank you.
All right. Anders, what are the limitations of AI?
I'm so tempted to just comment about the last question first. I think we're underselling Sweden a bit here. And the conditions we do provide in Sweden, I think, is far better than many other countries. So, and I also think we're underselling the educational system we have in Sweden. So the engineers we get out of universities are surprisingly good. And that's why we've seen so many success stories in Sweden with Spotify, with Klarna, with Truecaller and so more. So I think we're underestimating a bit. I'd just like to make that clear first. When it comes to limitations of AI, one saying that I usually use is, luckily there is a big difference between what AI is good at and what humans are good at. So we can say that AI is rather good at going through a large amount of data in a short period of time, but they're rather poor at going through a small amount of data in a very more deep way. If you take a human, on the other hand, it can't really go through thousands of pages of text or hours of videos in a quick time, but it can go through a small amount of data in a much, much deeper way than AI of today can. So then the obvious, conclusion from that is, how should you use AI? Well, you should use it together with humans, obviously, and use AI for what's good for, to filter out and enrich the data you do have. So humans then later can focus on the small filtered out part and do the deep analysis and decision making. This is really how we try to employ AI. And if you do that and understand the limitations of AI, you will have the best of both worlds.
And Veronica, what is important in order for companies in Stockholm to ensure we have the right competence?
Well, we were already into the topic, so I would say it depends also if you look at, do you talk about attracting AI experts, or do you talk about ensuring that the broad perspective of employees have sufficient skills in their respective jobs? But anyhow, being an attractive employer, as always, with a strong purpose, I think that's for sure, being able to recruit both nationally and internationally. And we were into, of course, educational system is important, and then housing situation, healthcare system, and also. But generally, I think we need to talk also more about the upskill, reskill, because no matter how hard we try, it will be very difficult to attract enough new AI expert talent. So we probably need to focus a lot of building on those that we have inside the companies.
Upskill, reskill. That is sticked to my mind at least.
Exactly.
And Alok, you've been here for a while now, and what is your recommendation to Swedish government when it comes to artificial intelligence?
So I'm here to study upskilling and reskilling programs. So I would say that is something I also agree with. That is a way to provide a path for the existing worker pool in Sweden to be ready for a workplace where AI is a very common tool. I think I would make two other recommendations. These are very similar to recommendations I would also make in the US context. And that is one, that the Swedish government can invest in infrastructure that supports entrepreneurship. So that's creation of data sets that can be useful in the AI context. It might be computing infrastructure that's available for research or for startups to access. This is something that has been contemplated but not yet funded in the US. And the second recommendation is that there's a lot of incentives, and I'm not really worried that we'll figure out the commercial uses of AI. But the government, perhaps working with philanthropies or NGOs, can really do a lot to facilitate through funding or through economic development partnerships, discovery of pro-social use cases for AI that can help solve community problems or other types of issues where there's less of a clear commercialization potential.
All right, and let's move a little bit into the future. What would you say, Anders? What skills and knowledge will be essential for the workforce in the future when it comes to AI?
I think it will be a clear difference between two sets of people. One set of people that use AI and one that don't, right? So the obvious answer then is the skill you should have is understand how you should use AI. If you do that as a person or as a company, you will be set for a future where we have an AI together with human kind of way of working. So, AI is really augmenting all the people. So that means for any type of job. So if we can have, and any person is actually interested in learning how to use AI, and it doesn't matter about the gender or race or age. Anyone can actually start using AI today and use that for whatever job they have, and the one that do will be set for the future.
All right, and I was thinking we can include Mark here as well. What do you have to say about this, Mark?
Thank you, Anders. That was insightful. The workforce of the future demands digital literacy, critical thinking, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. AI can foster gender equality by minimizing biases in recruitment, promoting fair pay through data analysis, and enhancing diversity and inclusion. Additionally, AI contributes to objective decision-making by providing unbiased performance evaluations and continuously monitoring and addressing biases. However, ensuring the ethical use of AI and maintaining a focus on human skills and empathy are essential for a truly inclusive and equitable workplace.
I didn't like that answer, I must say.
You didn't like it?
No.
That is
Not
what
at all.
AI has to say about this topic. But Alexander, you liked the previous answer.
I think it was faster than mine and straight to the point. But this is good. We realized that we can still add value, which is positive.
Human can still add
AI
value.
is selling
AI,
itself,
yes.
but we're not buying it completely yet.
Exactly. All right. So I was thinking you can take true or false here. We have some true and false answers. Hope you are not as aligned, so we can get some conflict here on the stage. But since we're in Sweden, it could be difficult as well. Everyone will look at everyone's signs, maybe. Stockholm is currently leading the global AI talent hub. True or false? No. Alok, why not? You've been around.
I think there's potential there, but I think the most advanced AI companies are still all in San Francisco, right?
But we are still, to give some positive note on it, I mean, we are still leading in the number of unicorns per capita. So in some sense, in a relative sense at least, we are really good.
Thank you, Anders, for just balancing that a little bit. We're not as bad as we think we are. So
we're good. It's the talent pool that's just small.
Exactly.
Small numbers.
Small country, small talent pool. AI will eliminate more jobs than it creates in the near future. True or false? False. Veronica, do you want to answer that?
Well, I was into the topic. I think it will change more jobs, but I think also new ones will be created into an equal amount that the jobs that will disappear. So not in the short term.
I agree. I heard a thought leader in the AI space last week talking about 80% of jobs will be replaced like end of year next year. I think we have a very narrow view when we think like that. It's much more industries out there than tech, and tech is easy to automate, and white-collar workers are easy to automate. Others are still needed. You have lots of governments that are not as far on digitalization, not talking about you. There's like a bunch of things that needs to happen, so it's unlikely.
And I look forward to a future where actually, as humans, can do the fun part of the job, and the AI can do the boring part, because that's really what they're good at. So I think it will be a fun future.
I think I would encourage people to think about the difference between AI doing tasks and AI doing jobs. Jobs are bundles of tasks, and not all of those tasks are things that AI can do easily. And so I think there is some utility in sort of thinking about it with that level of rigor.
Yeah. Right. So we have the last true or false. AI will eventually make all decisions more objective and more fair. Anders?
Well, I think, AI can help people make better decisions. So if we continue on that track and believe that's true, it means that as we as humans are getting augmented with AI, we are making better decisions. And better decisions means more fairer and less biased decisions. So yes, I believe it will.
And we have a conflict on stage. Alexander?
Well, I don't want to be replaced by Mark, so I have to do a no on this one. And I think there's an emotional component that will be hard to replicate. So that's why I think there will still be emotional biases built into things. But I think decisions will be better, definitely.
All right. So that was the last true or false I had. And I also want to say thank you to Mark.
Thank you for welcoming me to today's event. Together, let's ensure that Stockholm's tech scene not only survives, but thrives in the years to come.
That was a really positive last note from Mark, and I know we had some positive comments here on stage as well, so give this last panel a big applaud. So I think you...
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so we are approaching the end of this afternoon seminar. I hope you have enjoyed yourself, and now we have some time to mingle, and there will be something to eat and so on. So I hope you will take this opportunity to stay a little bit and talk to each other. And that was it from today's official agenda. So let's move in that direction for some drinks and snacks.